What's up guys, this is Wenzes. Welcome back to my channel where we talk about personal development for INFJs and how to create an epic life on your terms. Today we're talking about projection and not this typical, oh, people are projecting on me kind of thing that a lot of INFJs go through. It has a lot to do with the narcissistic codependent dynamic. But today I want to talk to you about us INFJs projecting ourselves. This is something we have to look into. It's something that I've done in the past so much, and I'll never ever get to a point where I feel like I'm not doing this anymore. I'm getting better, I'm leaning into it, but it's time that we acknowledge it so we take the power back in the situation and see how projection is holding us back. Before we get started, I want to remind you, if you want to take the next step in creating your INFJ epic life, then work with me privately. The bootcamp already launched. So if you haven't been able to join this time, work with me privately or join one of the next bootcamps next year. So let's start with the basics. What is projection? There are a lot of definitions out there. When I talk about projections, I'm talking about assuming something about another person. So meaning if I don't have enough information about the other person, I get to create my own image of them. And we as INFJs are so prone to this, it's not even funny. It's because our intuition is so strong, meaning we daydream. We create this story about another person. And this is something we of course don't just do when it comes to people, right? Projection is in a lot of ways when it comes to another person, but this thing that we make up a story is a typical INFJ thing. And this can be a huge benefit and a huge strength. Meaning when you're in a black box, you can create a structure out of it. I always keep on saying, go to places where the situations are complex, where there isn't a structure yet, and you get to create a structure. This is one of our biggest strengths, that we can go somewhere with little to no information and create a story, a structure that makes sense. So for example, you get to know a person and you barely know that person, and right away you have like this image of, oh, that person is exactly that way. The problem with this is that we continuously overestimate how much we actually know the other person. It's really something that we INFJs are prone to. And it's not because your intuition isn't strong. My intuition is very strong and I've been right so many times, but we always take it to the next step and we're not aware of it. For us, it's extremely difficult to understand what is reality and what is really in my mind. And very often, because we don't want a story to end, we don't want a daydream to end, we don't even pick up more information that would prove us otherwise. Meaning, let's say you meet a person, you don't really start talking to them on a daily basis and share with them who you really are in such a way that that person might be turned off. So for example, let's say you're a person who has a lot of opinions and is very strong-willed. So often we actually hide this part because we have some kind of story that would hurt the other person, it would make them feel uncomfortable, whatever it is. But the underlying thing that's going on is, as long as we don't share that, as long as they don't really give us real feedback about who they really are, we get to continuously live our story. And this is something that we do because we don't want to take charge of our reality. It is difficult for us INFJs. We do live a lot in our mind, but this doesn't have to be a negative trait. This doesn't have to be something where you feel like, oh, poor me, why am I this way? And it's also not something that you just have to accept in a way of, yeah, I'm just somebody who lives in their head and my life will never turn out the way I want it to, and then you just give up. Neither of those scenarios is necessary. You can look at it from a perspective of, yes, it's amazing that I get to create structures from a system that is not there yet. That gives you the opportunity to create great visions, great ideas in business, in your private life, no matter where you go. You get to create something. You have a vision and you can follow it. This is one of the great things about this projection thing, that if you are focused on something, you're not going to let go. You will only stop when you have enough information that proves to you that something is different than you thought, that you made a mistake, that something isn't right here. And that mistake that we're making is something that we should really take a little bit more lightly. This is something that really broke my ego because I thought there's no way I'm wrong about this. And I know so many INFJs who are like this as well. See, all the things I'm talking about, yes, there are things I've experienced, there are things and mistakes I have made in the past. And as I said, I never believed that this is something where you just stop learning. You always get better. But I also see it in my clients. I see it in people writing me. You know, like people will have their opinion of who I am, and it's not on me to prove them wrong, because we ourselves decide what we want to see and how we want to see it, and it's always through your own lens. This is the whole thing. I will never get to know you. I will never get to know another person. I might think I understand so much about other people. The truth is, everything I think about another person is always through my own lens. There's never a situation where I will be able to understand that other person the way they really are. You know, there's like this typical thing of INFJ saying, oh, I understand that person better than they understand themselves. Yes, I see where this is coming from, as in, you see some blocks that they're having that they themselves are not aware of, that are happening on a subconscious level for them. I get that. That can all be true. But still, everything we see about the other person is something that we see through our own lens and our own experience. So you might ask, okay, so what is the problem here? Why is this even an issue? The issue in this aspect is that we're wasting our time. We're wasting our time thinking about scenarios that could be, instead of actually going for the life we want. See, we as INFJs, with all the visions that we have a hard time putting it into reality. And we are spending so much of our time daydreaming about things that are not progressing. Very important. If you're daydreaming about things that are progressing, you're in a good spot. And you are the one who has to make sure that that thing is progressing. For example, my business, it is progressing. So if I'm thinking about, okay, this is how it's going to happen in the future, this is how it's going to grow, this is of benefit for me because I get to project my future, my vision onto something that is continuously expanding. And because I do it in the real world, there's feedback. There's feedback from my environment that tells me, yes, you were right about this aspect. In this aspect, learn a little bit better, understand what kind of mistakes you made in the past, and then you continue. With any kind of success I've had in my life, and I'm not just talking about my business, I'm also talking about all my personal relationships, as in they became more authentic. I understood why all my former relationships didn't work out. They didn't work out because I wasn't willing to get that feedback. And that feedback is not like saying to a person, oh, do you like me? And the other person saying, yes, I like you, or no, I don't like you. That's not the feedback I'm necessarily talking about. I'm talking about feedback of things that are actually happening. So a great way to look at it from a functional standpoint is to think of this as TE, extroverted thinking. Extroverted thinking is logic that is undeniable, logic that is really happening in the real world. So for example, what is not extroverted thinking is you met somebody one time, you had like this great connection, then this person doesn't call you, they don't answer any of your texts, there's nothing going on, and in your mind you have this image of, well, but we had such a connection and I imagine how they actually want to be with me, but they have some kind of problem with themselves and they don't recognize it, and the story goes on and on. Where is the extroverted thinking in that? When has this person objectively shown you that they're interested in having a relationship with you? When has that person shown you that they're interested in working with you and you becoming part of their team? When we're talking about, let's say, a professional situation, we need to look at this because we're continuously forgetting this. I, to this day, have to actively work on this. This is one of the hardest things we as INFJs have to learn, but it's not impossible, and it gets easier every single time. So when I was younger, I had this thing of, oh, I understand other people so well and people like me, and like I had all of this image in my mind of that I know so much, but I didn't dare to get that feedback from my environment to really see what's going on. The more often I did it, the more I understood how many people have no understanding of who I am, have no understanding of what I'm about, and have no interest in spending time with me. And before I felt like, oh, something is missing, I don't feel like I'm really being seen. Of course not, because I wasn't really showing my true strengths. I wasn't showing those things that I could be judged about. I remember particularly that one person told one of my best friends, there's nothing I can say about Wenzes. There's nothing I can judge. She observes, and that way you never know what she thinks, what she's about, and so on. And I thought that this was actually something of a badge of honor, I'm not really putting myself out there. I rather want to understand the other person, but where's the feedback? How do you know what that person actually thinks about you? Not that it matters what that person thinks about you, but you are assuming something about that person. You're assuming they like like the way you are, or they would benefit from you being in their life. All those assumptions come down to projection. You have created an image about the other person that is based on little information that you've gotten so far, right? That's the black box. The black box thing is that, you're put into a situation, you have barely any insights, barely any things that you can work with, and then you can create something great about it, right? You put somewhere you don't know anything, and then you create this great system. Amazing. This can be of benefit, but every single thing that has a benefit for you can also be a hindrance if you don't work it properly. So instead of assuming that the other person actually really likes you, or really understands you, and that you're flowing, or whatever it is, just give them a chance to show you what they really think about you. And this is not something also from a perspective of, oh, I like that person, and then, I now figure out that they don't like me. It's also the other way around. Do you understand how many people you could actually have an authentic relationship with if they would just know more about you? And that in itself would change your entire trajectory of how your life is going. Because it's not about that one person. It's about how you show up every single day. And with that in mind, all the people in your environment change. You are interested in different people because you're not in a position anymore where you're just looking to sort of be accepted. You show all of your strengths. You show all of what you can show, what you feel is appropriate. And you see, do the people in my life help me to become the person I want to be? Or do I need to pull myself back? Do I need to dim my life in order to be able to be part of their life? And this was a huge revelation for me, and that's why I'm pushing it so much. Because I want us to understand this. I want us to look at what we're doing, because then we get to create a better future for ourselves. We understand that this is in our control. And on top of everything, it helps us to bring our vision to life. So how does that happen? How do we switch from, okay, I'm not projecting, so that means I'm actually creating my future in the way I want. Like I'm creating that INFJ epic life. Projection has so much to do with daydreaming. Daydreaming in a way of I'm escaping reality, because reality isn't what I really like. What is that reality in that scenario where you say, okay, I met that one person and I think they really value me, but I don't really get that feedback. So reality is that person hasn't shown any kind of interest in me so far. And I don't want to look at that reality, because if I would look at that reality, I would know I have to let that go and actually focus on creating something better for my life. It's much easier, particularly for us INFJs, to just escape this reality, live in our mind, and in our mind, this is a great relationship. This is something where we feel connected, where we are one, where there's so much opportunity. And I use dating scenarios right now, but it's so much more than this. This really isn't what this is all about. This is also about, how do your coworkers see you? How do you show up? How, like, if you want to start your own business, how do other people see you? It doesn't matter where you are, what you've done, how proud you are of yourself or not. It doesn't mean that the other person will feel the same, positively nor negatively. I've seen everything. That's why I'm always saying the people from my last job, I really don't think that they look at me and say, oh, she's made it. She lives her epic life and she's her own boss and has all this freedom. I don't. I still believe that they are first off not thinking about me at all. And if they were, probably most of the time they would think about, okay, so she wasn't able to handle what we're doing. And none of this has anything to do with me. This is their way of thinking. So this assumption that we always have of people understand our strengths, people understand our weaknesses, people understand our heart, is just keeping us back. We don't need people to recognize by themselves that we are great people. They either do or they don't. And it has absolutely nothing to do with us. It has everything to do with that person's experiences, with that person's worldview and preferences. And that's totally fine. And once you accept that, you save so much time. Time that you have spent before thinking about how that relationship could work, why it isn't working, what you have done wrong, why aren't they able to grasp your mind. Forget about that. The point is you keep on going. You go to the next thing, because the people around you, they switch up. Yes, you have your closest friends and your family members, but the more you evolve, the more you actually change the kind of people you surround yourself with. And that can only happen if you're focused on a self-image that is based on what you're doing, meaning extroverted sensing. What are you doing in the real world that is objectively observable? That is extroverted sensing. That's how you put your image, your vision, everything that you dream of into reality. It starts with small steps and then it keeps on getting bigger. And before you know it, there is no discrepancy between those two things. You won't have a reason to daydream because your life is just as exciting as your daydreams could be. But in order to do that, you have to wake up. You have to see the fact that yes, we do project. It is something that is a byproduct, and as long as we're aware of it, we get to transform it. I really hope that inspired you and helped you to take the next step in creating your INFJ epic life. Remember, if you want my help with this, then work with me privately. All the information you find below. And if you want to watch another video now that is in line with today's topic, then watch my video on INFJ being cold-hearted and brutal. Like always, guys, I wish you a wonderful day, a great week, and I'll talk to you next time.